too and all that, because you want to be in the community and be able to afford to live in the city to teach the kids. But it's about making schools better. And so the union is totally changing its role of like a service model, benefits and pay, to a community model. We want the parents involved. We want the students involved in this big struggle to make our schools better.
You know, that's really important point that you're making about the union is not just about looking out for the self-interest of workers, but the union cares about the community as a whole. And I think it's important because this battle to not only, and we've mentioned election of school boards, but we have a serious battle going on in the country about unions in general, where certainly service unions are being attacked, and the corporate sector is trying to undermine the union movement. Dave Stieber, talk a little bit about the transition that you've seen in the union as you got involved. I mean, were you involved in the union before Karen Lewis became the president?
I was involved for 2 months before she became president. In those 2 meetings that I went to, I had no idea what was going on in the meetings. I had no idea what I was supposed to do as a delegate. And once she got in, there became all these trainings about, you're a delegate, this is what you should do, or you're a new delegate, this is what the union's about. And so there was a whole education of the members of the union about what the union is, because we didn't even know. And so that was a big change and big movement. I mean, as far as the whole country, obviously I'm biased because I'm in Chicago, but like the work that Karen Lewis and CORE, the caucus that represents the union, is doing is transformative across the entire nation. The struggle of school closings is happening in every major city across the country, and what's going on here is giving hope, giving inspiration to a lot of the cities that's going on. Kansas City a few years ago, half their public schools were closed, which is just astounding, right? And so our number of 54 is large, it's offensive. However, we're nowhere near half of the entire schools. And so as the mayor's starting to back down a little bit, as he's backed down on a lot of the things he proposed before, once the parents got involved, and now the students are starting to get involved. There's a group called Chicago Students Organizing to Save Our Schools. They're organizing a massive protest on Monday. There's a 3-day march this weekend about saving our schools. So the unions are really stepping up and helping the city energize, and the students, as they get on board, as times have shown, as you mentioned about the Sun High School thing, in 1963, there was a Freedom Day. 250,000 students boycotted schools. I don't know if you were a part of that.
I didn't know about that one.
Okay. And so,
but I was active in those days, up in Lake Forest, trying to integrate the barber shops.
Yeah, and so once students get involved, this whole thing's going to change. I mean, the 60s, there was a huge student movements in Los Angeles and all across the country, but once these students continue to go, it's going to steamroll, and it's going to be a great thing.
Well, there is an announcement here. The citywide 3-day march for education justice in Chicago. It's today, tomorrow, and Monday. And the mayor and the Board of Education want to destroy 54 school communities. Where are people going on this? Where is the march and the rally?
So the march has started today on as far south as you can go and as far west as you can go in the city, and this march is slated to go almost by every school on the proposed list. And so it's a 3-day march. Some people will be on it all 3 days. They'll be camping out at the nights. People can come and go on the march as you feel. There are routes. If you go onto ctunet.com, the routes are laid out for the south and the west sides. On Monday afternoon at Daly Plaza at 4 p.m., there's a huge rally downtown against the school closings, because the appointed school board is going to vote Wednesday to close the schools regardless of what the community says. And so at this point, it's just being like, the entire city, however many people is against these school closings, you've got to listen. And if you don't, we're going to occupy your schools, because there are schools.
You know, I was really impressed with, during the strike, at how well organized the teachers were. We haven't seen anything like this. This is really it was a beautiful thing to watch. I mean, I saw teachers from various schools around here walking through neighborhoods, and a lot of people hung out here during that. As a guy who's gotten involved and become not only a union rep, but knowing more about union activism, what's your take on the attitude of the teachers leading up to that strike, where it was during the strike, and how they've been since then?
I mean, it's empowering. I mean, because in Chicago, there's kind of like, 3 groups of teachers maybe. One being like, there's so many attacks on teaching, it's tough, I don't know if I want to do this. Another one being, I'm just going to do what I'm going to do, I'm going to close my door and ignore it all, but just teach my great lessons. And then a third group, which is becoming a larger group, of saying like, enough's enough. We're going to teach our kids because we love our kids, but we're also going to fight for this profession because we want to be in front of our kids. And so the union is helping to lead that and to awaken that and give us voice to us as teachers. And so like when the strike was happening, I teach in Inglewood, and Inglewood has got all sorts of problems, as people are aware of, communities of poverty, as the filmmaker earlier mentioned. And so we were marching through the neighborhoods, marching through these communities during the strike, and reaching out to parents, reaching out to people. And it's not typical to see groups of teachers marching through neighborhoods that people are supposedly afraid to even go into. And so we're marching through these streets that the kids that we teach. And so the kids started to be like, wow, you're doing this for us, even though the media and the mayor was saying how lazy and greedy we are. And knowing Barbara Bird Bennett says that we are fighting to keep the status quo by not wanting schools to close. But I don't want the status quo of schools not being fully funded to continue. So we're fighting to get schools fully funded and to keep them open and all that.
Dave Stieber, you teach in Inglewood, and it's probably a rough neighborhood these days. I go back to the 50s with a movie like Blackboard Jungle, which has Sidney Poitier and other people being like rebellious kids challenging teachers. That's kind of a stereotypical picture that you have a classroom full of rebellious kids, and a lot of times, third world and non-white, and they're challenging the teacher. What's it really like? What's it like in your classes? And I was just recently at Field School, nearby the original Field School, and one of our employees here at the Heartland is the president of the local school council, and he invited me. And it was the most wonderful event of music, not only mariachis, but jazz groups, kids playing their music. And the teachers seem to have a wonderful rapport with the kids. I mean, at one time there were kids rushing the stage as part of the deal. The teachers, it was pretty mellow, and then they kind of cooled it out. But it will look good. So yeah. What's it like in your school?
I mean, you can't watch a movie like made by Hollywood and think that's what classrooms look like Freedom Riders or all that stuff. Like, kids are kids and they want to learn, right? And so they just need teachers that are going to know that they care about them, and all the problems that you picture in the movies don't exist, right? So you come in as a teacher, you show that you care about kids, you plan strong lessons, and you do the things that you do because you care about kids, and kids kind of fall in line. And yeah, kids have issues anywhere, and some kids are going to act up no matter what school system or neighborhood you're in. But in Inglewood, it's no different. The kids want to learn, they want an education, and the community has lots of problems that need to be addressed, obviously. Our school needs more things to help address the things the kids have to deal with, such as violence that they see on the street, and we need more counselors and all of that. But in the classrooms themselves, the kids want to be there and they want to learn because they want to make themselves better and they want to change the society that they live in.
There's a lot of talk about standardized testing.
Yep. And
I imagine there's pressure on you in the school to do that. I imagine that would take you away from maybe teaching some real history.
Yep.
We've seen a movement in Seattle and other places where students and teachers and other people have voted, actually teachers, not to give those tests. What's the pressure on you to give those kind of tests?
Well, I mean, the movement in Seattle is successful. They don't have to give those tests anymore. That's just the strength of teachers and all of that. But weeks of class time are lost to teaching. Are lost to testing. In high school, it's about 7 days of instruction is lost to actually kids taking tests that are mandated by the state. It was even to the point until very recently that kindergarten through third grade was having about the same thing, and finally Barbara Bird Bennett realized how bad that looks, and so she backed down and said there won't be those testing. But the student group that I mentioned earlier, Chicago students organizing to save our schools, they led a boycott of the second day of ACT testing. So the first day is the ACT, which is for college. The second day is irrelevant. It doesn't matter to the kids at all. It's called the PSAE. It matters for the schools to be graded by this report card, this bogus criteria. It doesn't affect the kids one bit. And so the kids knew that, and they decided to protest and boycott. And Barbara Bennett said the kids should be in school learning, but you're not learning taking a bubble test that is made up by someone that doesn't even teach. You're learning by your teachers being in front of you. And so these kids are smart enough to know that. And so once the kids start to know this stuff, it's going to stop. And so in Seattle, the teachers kind of helped make that known, and then the kids did walkouts and boycotts and protests. And once kids learn it, they teach their parents, and then it's all over. So that's kind of where I hope we head.
Once again, there's going to be a march Monday downtown Daly Plaza.
Yep.
What's your prediction as a gambling man about the size of that crowd?
Well, the weather's going to be good, so I'm thinking it's going to be a couple thousand, so it's going to be good. So definitely come out. Obviously during this strike, we had 40,000 people on the street. That was obviously a little bit of an exception. Hopefully we don't have to take over the streets again, but it's definitely heading in that direction. I mean, definitely it's going to be in the thousands, and it's going to be making some press.
And one last prediction: what's your sense on how many schools they actually will close?
I'm going to fight for 0.
That's a good one. We want to thank you for coming on the show. You're great.
Thank you.
You're doing a great job as a union rep. I'm sure you're a hell of a teacher.
Thank you for having me on.
A good human being. I'm glad to have you. It was good to have your dad. It was good to have Zarna Rondon. It was good to have George DeZort, a couple of filmmakers and a veteran activist and an activist in the schools. You've been listening to Live from the Heartland. We're here every Saturday morning. I want to encourage you to tune in again next week. Katie Hogan will be handling the microphones, and she's going to talk with Tom Gahagan, who is a labor lawyer, and he is going to talk about the suit against the city and the gerrymandering of the ward remap that is already in process. A lot of people help make this show possible. I want to thank them all. I'm not going to do it by name. We encourage you to do good in the world. The world needs all the good that you do. All power to the people. Over and out. Have a great day. Boom.
You're listening to 88.7 WLUW, Chicago Sound Alliance, broadcasting from the campus of Loyola University.
WLUW, WLUW.